I call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Bennick?
Here.
Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Hallen?
Here.
Commissioner Ryan?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Vice Chair Summers?
Here.
Chair Blair?
Here. At this time, will we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have the community development update, please?
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, good evening. I have a few items to report. I have good news. As you probably are aware, City Council had a complete count committee of residents that were doing everything they can to raise awareness regarding the importance of the census and how important it was for residents to fill it out. Those forms were due on April 1st, and people are sending those back in. For those of you who are watching at home that have not filled out your census form, please fill it out and mail it as soon as possible. But the good news is we are tracking real-time the response rate for the census, and the City of Surprise has a response rate that's higher than the local average, the state average, even the national average. So we're doing really well. So we appreciate the hard work of that citizen committee, which included Ken Chapman, who was on that with us. We appreciate that. But again, if those of you who have not sent it in, please send in your form as soon as possible. On Thursday, City Council is going to have a work session, and they've invited all their boards and commissions to attend to provide them with basically a progress report on their duties, responsibilities, and also their work program for next year. So I would invite all the commission members, if they're available, to attend the meeting. It's going to start at 4 o'clock. It'll go from 4 to 6. You'll know all about what's happening in the Planning and Zoning Commission, obviously, but also provide you with an opportunity to learn about the other commissions like Recreation, Transportation, and so on. So if you're available, please try to attend that meeting. Lastly, our next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be about the general plan. And as you know, that plan needs to be off-site in a different location. So that will be at the old City Council chambers, which is now the Arizona Tech Accelerator. But it will be in the old City Hall chambers at our regular time, and that will be on May 4th. And that's all I have to report. Thank you, ma'am.
Very good. Commissioners, does anyone have anything they'd like to share at this time?
I'd like to ask Jeff a question. What percent was our response on the census?
It's actually at 63% right now, which sounds pretty light, but we still have several weeks to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time I'm going to have a call to the public. Anyone wishing to speak on anything other than what's on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, I'm going to close that. And we're going to move, ask for a motion for the minutes of March 2nd, please.
I move to approve the minutes of March 2nd.
Second.
And all commissioners, Commissioner Summers?
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
Hallen?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
And
Yes.
were you here? Okay. At this time, we'll go ahead and vote. Were you here at the last
Yes.
meeting? At this time, vote, please.
I have one left. Commissioner Ryan, I need your vote.
Mr. Ryan, give it another shot. Mine didn't blink, so I don't know.
Madam Chair, the motion has passed with a vote of 7 ayes.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to move on with FS 09339. Mr. Winburn.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Before you tonight, I'm bringing before you FS 09339, Arizona Charter Academy. This is an existing facility. In the original town site, just south of Grand along Dysart Road. And as you see here, this is the existing facility. There are 3 buildings existing now. And in the red, here is the proposed 3 classrooms, 2 restroom building. Just a little bit of a close-up to show you that. Also, there is going to be a covered walkway between the 2 buildings. And the architecture matches the architecture of the existing buildings. So now, and that concludes my presentation, barring any questions you may have.
Commissioner Summers, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Wright, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Chapman?
No questions.
Commissioner Howland?
No questions.
Smith?
No questions.
And Commissioner Bennett?
No questions.
May I ask for a motion at this time, please?
I move to approve FS 09-339, a site plan amendment for Arizona Charter Academy, and to adopt staff's findings and condition A.
Commissioners, please vote at this time.
I need a second.
Need a second?
Second. I second it. Or you second it?
Commissioner Wright?
There's something wrong with
Yeah,
mine.
there's, try pushing it one more time. Yours is not recording.
Madam Chair, the motion has passed with a vote of 7 ayes.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to FS 09307, the AT&T wireless.
Moon Valley
Which
should be FS 09-249.
Moon Valley Nursery?
Okay, we'll go on to FS 09249.
Thank you. Once again, this is a application for Moon Valley Nursery, located again in the original town site, just north of the previous application we had in here. And as you're aware, there is an existing site just south of Bell Road, and this will be located along Cottonwood Street, just north of Grand Avenue, and east of Dysart Road. Now, this may ring a little bit of a bell to you because Moon Valley Nursery was in here back in March of last year for a site plan, and there was a couple changes. And what we're here tonight is to take care of a couple of those changes. Originally, in red, what you'll see here, that was the original piece of property they came in with their proposal, and they added the next 2 acres to them. And those 2 acres were zoned residential, R15. So this also includes a rezone. Another change, the building footprint was a single-story building located, as you can see here in red, and that changed to a larger footprint, an interesting building that you'll be seeing in the elevations coming up. A little bit closer in to the site plan. Again, the building, main building with the 2 structures and the overall roof structure. The access is off Cottonwood Street from the south. And there's also this straight access for pedestrians. Also, there is parking for 97 cars on this proposal. And there's plenty of landscaping in the front. They have a 50-foot landscape buffer, and as well as enhancing the streetscape of Cottonwood, it's also a good advertisement for a nursery business. These are the elevations of the building. There's 2 separate enclosed buildings with an overall structure given an open feeling. I've also included a little bit of a rendering here to show you what that's going to look like from Cottonwood Street. Now, one condition I did have on here, you'll notice, is that the roof color is to match a certain color that was used on the buildings. And I don't want you to be confused that that was going to be painted on. That would be a coating that would that would last through there instead of the plain metal roof. The second part is the zoning. Like I said, the eastern 2 acres was RL5. This proposes to change that to community commercial to match the rest of the facility. Now, we did have a community outreach or a citizen review process, and we held it right on the property to get as many people in the area to come as possible. And unfortunately, nobody did show up for that meeting. But there did not seem to be any, we never received any calls of opposition for this project. That concludes my presentation, barring any questions you may have.
Commissioner Ray, do you have any questions? Commissioner Chapman?
Yes, I have one. I know in other areas, other projects, that we were looking at like fire access, emergency access, and in some of those cases and developments, some of them larger ones, we needed 2 access points.
Mm-hmm.
The change that had taken place to add these extra couple acres, does that change the conditions?
Yeah, that, in most places, yes, that is an issue. But they worked with the fire department that there is, the access is there. They also have sufficient fire hydrants on site, and they didn't feel like they needed those 2 access points on there. So but they did work closely with the fire department to address that issue, that very issue.
Thank you, that's all.
Commissioner Howland?
I just, one question on the east side of the property. It'll back against a row of houses. Is the fact that this is just going to be plant display enough buffer for those houses? I assume that they either were aware of this and didn't care, or they're going to be well enough buffered.
Well, they were all notified of this,
Yeah.
and they were given a mailing to each one of those addresses. And they were notified also, the applicant did put a fence up through there beforehand, and they knew that was coming, and the description in the mailing did tell them what was going to happen, and yes, it will be all plant material.
Just plant material.
That's correct.
And that,
there is not going to be any truck storage, anything like that. It's going to be simply plant material.
if they later on decided to modify that, that would require some action by
That is correct. That
staff
would
or
require a site plan amendment through
Okay.
the city of Surprise. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
No questions.
Commissioner Bennett?
I have a question just out of my own curiosity. Are there any plans for the location that they currently are located?
I would like to ask the applicant to come up to answer that. Good.
Good evening. I'm Mark Russo, Chief Operations Officer for Moon Valley Nurseries. And if any one of you guys need that piece of property, we will sell that to you right now. We moved, and we did this because we wanted to increase our visibility. And being off of Greasewood like that, you guys moved, right?
Absolutely.
You were across the street. Yeah. We're going to try to sell the property.
Okay, thank you. I just was, like I said, out of my own curiosity, I just wanted to know if there were any plans for it in place.
Yeah, we're almost to the realtor stage. As soon as we get this one going, then we're going to definitely shut that one down and attempt to sell the property.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
No quick offers from
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody's whipping out cards.
There's only one commercial realtor, and there he is over there.
and he's silent.
Commissioner Summers, do you
No
have any
questions.
questions? At this time, may I have a motion then?
I'll move to recommend approval to the mayor and city council of FS 09-249, a rezone as well as an approved site plan amendment to Moon Valley Nursery, and to adopt staff findings and conditions A through E.
Second.
Commissioners, at this time, will you vote, please?
Madam Chair, if you could open the public hearing quickly, please.
Okay.
The call to the public.
Anyone wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none,
Thank
I
you, ma'am.
close it and ask commissioners to vote, please.
Chair Blair, I need your vote, please. Thank you. Madam Chair, the motion has passed with a vote of 7 ayes.
Thank you. Okay, and at this time, since half this isn't on our paperwork, we're going to adopt the work plan for the Planning and Zoning Commission at this time.
Madam Chair, just real quickly, this is what we foresee in the crystal ball for the commission to consider over the next several months. A lot of it's going to be revolving around the village planning process, and we'll hear some of that tonight. We're also going to be updating the general plan, specifically to look at the transportation map, which we'll be amending. You'll see that in May. You'll also see the streetscape guidelines in June, a gap study, which is going to help identify gaps in our infrastructure system throughout the city in July. We spent a lot of time about 12 months ago on the SUDC. We're going to bring it back and have a broad discussion to make sure that you're all satisfied with that, and probably to make some just housekeeping amendments to it. It's a very big document, so we knew it had to be some cleanup for that. We're going to have the Arizona Game and Fish Department come out and make an interesting presentation, we think, to provide wildlife corridors and linkages throughout the city in October. And then we're also going to be talking about creating a heritage district potentially in the OTS. So that's the broad brush items for the work program. As the Commission is very aware, a lot of your work program is dictated by developers bringing forward applications, but the things that will be initiated by City staff and City Council are included in the work program, and we recommend its approval.
Could I ask a question? Could you refresh me on what SUDC?
That's the Surprise Unified Development Code. If you remember, we took subdivision, zoning, everything in one document.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Chapman, did you have any questions? Any others?
No.
No.
What is the wayfinding study?
The wayfinding study is interesting because we have residents that come to Surprise and they have challenges actually finding their way not only to the city itself, but more specifically to the City Hall complex, the court facility, and so on. So actually Nicole has developed a very nice plan that will guide people actually from the interstate to the city and then here to City Hall. It's really a way of providing signage and orientation to get people to civic facilities. It's something that's really needed in the city. We want to do it in a uniform fashion that is well done architecturally and in a design fashion. So we want to route that through the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Now, this does not do a public hearing at this time.
No public hearing.
I'd like to ask for a motion, please.
I move to approve the Planning and Zoning Commission work plan for 2010.
I second that.
Commissioners, at this time, would you please vote?
Madam Chair, the motion has passed with a vote of 7 ayes.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to move on to the discussion of the Village One plan, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. So tonight I bring before you, I'm short, I cannot reach and speak at the same time. So tonight I bring before you the Village One plan. This is a draft plan. So what we'll do tonight is discuss the elements, look at the elements that we have considered in this plan. We'll discuss the design districts. You'll also get a chance to give your comments and opinions on the village plan, and we'll talk about future steps. So just to bring you back to Village One boundary. So Village One is bounded on the west by Reams Road, on the south by Greenway, on the east side by roughly by 115th Avenue, and on the north roughly by Grand Avenue. Just bringing you back just to make sure if you're aware of the boundaries. Now, village plan is modeled kind of after the general plan. You'll see somewhat the same elements featured here, but if you look closely, you'll see that the elements that we have chosen for Village One are important specifically to Village 1 because we are looking at the economic dynamism that exists in Village 1. We are looking at the future. We are looking at the local history and the culture that exists. And we are looking at a community vision for this area. So we have our vision chapter. We have our land use chapter, which acts as the base with urban design, economic development, transportation and infrastructure providing the ancillary features. And we'll also look at the implementation element, and that is where I'll need most feedback from you. So moving on, if you go back to a previous meeting, we had discussed the vision. We had the 3 E's, a place for entrepreneurs to locate and prosper, a place for education all the way from K through 12 and 4-year universities, and a place for entertainment. So land use is our first chapter and a most important chapter, if I may say so. What we are planning to do with land use and the goals and policies is to create a collection of mixed-use urban neighborhoods. We want to create a brand identity for Village 1 as a downtown of surprise. So what we are looking at doing is, and Mr. Gruber can elaborate, we have some Prop 207 issues, so we are not changing any land uses. But what we are planning to do is consolidate some of the land uses. Now, if you see, this has worked really well for Surprise Center, where everything has been consolidated into one single land use. It's just purely called Surprise Center. We are planning to do that for OTS, the original town site, and also for Bell and Grand. So we'll consolidate land uses there and call it as either transit-oriented development for Bell and Grand and the OTS Heritage District for OTS. We will be looking at mixed uses and increased heights in certain locations, just a few chosen locations. Not everywhere, just a few chosen locations. We'll be looking at distinct district identities and distinct streetscapes for most of the streets, chosen streets in Village 1. So the urban design element will guide us through the district identities and the specific streetscape design. So here we're looking at multifunctional centers. We're looking at a pedestrian-oriented area for people to recreate and work and live in and play in. We're developing goals and policies for context-sensitive architecture, not just for the Sonoran Desert, but also for Village 1 to build an identity as an urban core of the Surprise. So we're looking at two things, two elements playing together at the same time. We're looking at identifiable circulation systems. Jeff touched on it a while ago with wayfinding system, connectivity, and so on. We're looking at developing policies for a visually stimulating built environment. Does anybody have any questions? Please feel free to interject while I'm going on. So I'll just go through some of the districts that we have developed. We kind of touched on it in the previous meeting when I came before you about 6 months ago with the Village 1 plan. So first we're looking at the OTS Heritage District. So right now we're working on developing heritage guidelines. Now these guidelines are based on the input we received from the community. We did a door-to-door survey, and these are some of the things that we came up with. They wanted to see a neighborhood center where they could go to sit-down restaurants, where they could have recreational opportunities and such. So, which is why you'll see the area along Bell Road, where our older city hall was. That's where you'll see the neighborhood center. You'll also see it plays really well with the Lizard Run Park and the Lizard Run Trail system around here. You'll see Market Street Corridor, which has great access from Grand Avenue. You'll see some mixed uses or ability to do mixed uses and probably increased heights and also live-work units in Market Street. Again, we're looking at context-sensitive architecture. So you're not going to see 15 stories or 70 stories. It might be more likely 2 to 3 stories at the most. Also, the community showed an interest to bring back some of the festivals and fairs that used to be held in OTS before. and they specified the old city hall, sorry, not the old city hall, but where the senior center is located as a probable location. So we want to show that as civic uses and show it off as a market, place where fairs and parades and things like that could be held in the future. Everything else is heritage neighborhood, which means we are developing guidelines to preserve the character of the neighborhood. So we're not going to have a blanket of architectural guidelines for the neighborhood. It's going to preserve the character. Because one thing that every single homeowner in the OTS specified is their homes are very unique and they would like to keep it that way. So we don't want to maintain or we don't want to overlay with any architectural guidelines. It's more about the character. It's about the porch front, and it's about social and the economic vitality of the neighborhood. We'll also be allowing live work units in chosen locations. Another issue that came up was speeding along certain locations. So, it's a good opportunity for us to put in traffic calming guidelines, which acts as speed bumps and also at the same time beautify some of the streets when you put in traffic calming elements. So again, we're looking at a neighborhood center, heritage festivals, redevelopment along major corridors. So moving on. Bell and Grand Employment District, this is probably will see the most change in the future, primarily because of the probability of commuter rail. So we are looking at transit-oriented development. This is a place where you will see increased heights and changes, mixed uses. Again, it's future mixed use. So you'll see a lot of redevelopment. Some of the things that my committee came up with was access issues because of the Bell and Grand interchange. So we'll have to be looking at completely somewhat redesigning the area to ensure access to the existing businesses once the interchange is in place and once the rail system starts moving along. Of course, keep in mind, this is a long-term plan, so the commuter rail will not happen for several years. And of course, because of the commuter rail, this is a place where the transit center could be located. One thing that we are excited about is we are developing an employment value proposition for this area. This is where the entrepreneurship vision, a part of the vision, comes into play. We'll be creating an employment value proposition. So it'll be a definite number of policies incentivizing any business owner to locate here. We are not completely done with that, but you'll see it most likely with the final plan. At least you'll see a draft version with the final plan.
Could I ask you a question about the blue part here, transit-oriented development?
Mm-hmm.
We've been in the process of approving projects in this area, and it's not developed yet, but we really don't have any control on that type of development right now, do we?
At this time, no, but once we put in the transit-oriented development, it will allow them to go on and add on uses, allow residential, and so on. And this is kind of the impetus that you'll see with commuter rail coming in, just as the Phoenix Light Rail has done to the corridor alongside it. So you'll see somewhat that kind of development happening in the future, not right now.
But what I see right now is we're developing, this isn't developed yet.
No.
That we're saying that probably won't happen until it's redeveloped the next time?
No, that will be developed, but you will see redevelopment over that in the future.
Commissioner Hale, let me take a stab at it. What you have right now at Bell and Grand is very typically classified as highway-level commercial. You see some...
well, this is industrial now, isn't it?
I was going to say it's industrial, some of it's self-storage and so on, but they're clearly, in my opinion, temporary or transitional uses. If you don't plan for transit-oriented development now and put it into the Village 1 plan, you will continue to see the type of development pattern that you have there now. Okay, so the first step really is for the Commission and City Council to decide that if we do have passenger rail on Grand Avenue, and every indication is that we are going to be heading in that direction, and we do have a park and ride and a transit stop at Bell Grand, and again, it looks like we're headed in that direction, then it's incumbent upon us then to lay out the framework for transit-oriented development to steer the land use in the future. Vineeth is exactly right. This may not happen for 5, 10, even 15 years down the road, but until we establish the vision and the development pattern now, it's not going to happen. So you got to think long-term on this one.
Well, I don't have any disagreement, but the fact that it hadn't been developed yet kind of bothers me because...
Oh, until now?
Yeah, I mean, most of the area in blue is still vacant property. But I know we've been approving stuff in there, and it doesn't necessarily... And what I guess my question is, because of the laws in the state and stuff, what leverage do we have to really change our focus in the future, or in the immediate future?
Yeah, you have a lot of leverage.
I mean, there's a lot of these in this area. So.
Well, you have to start with changing your general plan, okay?
Okay.
And then you have to change your village plan. But if you had plans approved in advance, and they're part of law, which these documents would be by City Council, then City Council, Planning and Zoning Commission certainly could turn down a petition for a subdivision, zoning, or a site plan that isn't consistent with your general plan. But you have to do this part first.
Okay, that was just my question, because I know we're in the process in this area, and I was wondering how quick we can make our process match our long-term goals.
Part of it depends on how much direction you give Vanitha tonight.
Okay. I mean, because I have the same question on a lot of these areas as we've been going over them, and that's this one I recognize.
So moving on to Surprise Center. Now this plan is already mostly in place because we have a PAD that was approved way back. It's a mixed-use location, so you'll see a lot of different uses. The only issue why you're not seeing this happening is because of the deed restriction that is existing on this land. But there is an impetus to develop more education and research type of uses, a university most likely. We're also hoping, the city is hoping to advance the recreation component that is working really well for us economically, and add on more recreation towards Surprise Center along with the City Hall on the south side, as you'll see right here. And everything else will most likely be future mixed use. And on the southeast side, you might see an education or a research component. And on the northern side, it'll be most likely entertainment, restaurants, retail, office uses. And if we do get the deed restriction lifted, you will see more residential uses also in this location. But as I said, I don't think there's anything more that we can do because the zoning is already in place. So we just have to work towards getting those to fruition. All the plans that are already there.
Vanitha?
Yes.
The history of those future mixed uses from the east side of Bullard all the way down to Greenway has been a battle over time between the landowner and the city in what's envisioned. Is there any plans to work with the landowners so we can come to an agreement? Because right now we're at a standstill and nothing would happen, and that part is critical to the development of Stadium Village and the city center.
Absolutely. Carefree Partners, that is the landowner for this location, they are in my committee. So they have been sitting down with us at all the village meetings, and so we are very well aware, and they are very well aware of our vision for this area, and they have been working with us on getting there. But I think at this time our biggest step is to get the deed restriction lifted sometimes in the future, but they're aware.
My recommendation would be, to the extent possible, and I know it can't be done, is to further define that area in a little bit more detail than just say future mixed use, because that could be anything.
And I'd like to interject. That was exactly my concern. I wanted to know if there was some kind of common theme, some kind of plan in place, whether it was architecture, type of businesses, flow. What we're trying to attract here is what I would like to know with all the future mixed uses here. And is there any one area that we want to focus on first? Is there an order in which we want to complete these different mixed use areas in this city?
I'll tell you what we have worked on so far. So we have the recreation component here on the southwest corner. On the southeast corner, we're looking at, even though I say future mixed use, it most likely will be an education research component, most likely a university of that sort. On the north side and or on the either side of Statler Drive, you'll see some retail with residential or retail, pure retail. On the north side or the north west side, you'll see an international village of restaurants, again, hospitality industries, adding on to the development that you're seeing along Bullard Avenue and such. So you'll see that happening again on the west side of Bullard Avenue, and then with some more restaurants, retail, and then on the northeast corner you'll see office buildings, and that's where we would like to see some more residential components and such. There is more detail in the PAD document itself. I just haven't put it in here because of the issues that we have with the deed restriction and such. So there is more detail of this, and I can share it with you in the future. So.
Does that detail get put into the plan and approved and become the guiding force?
It is approved as far as a zoning. It is approved, so we should see it there. I think the only issue right now is because of the deed restriction. So that's why I haven't put it in this plan. But it is approved as a zoning document, so it is entitled to have that. It's entitled already.
Okay.
I just want to, Madam Chair, I just want to forewarn the Commission just a little bit on one thing is I clearly understand where you're headed with this is that what you really want to do is to prevent certain types of uses from coming in here. But we have to be careful about getting a little too specific, only from this standpoint. If we get a beautiful office complex in that we really want to have happen, but it's in a specific location, a certain acreage within this square mile, and it's not solely designated on the site, we still want it to happen. So we have to be a little bit more fluid, but we clearly understand that this isn't going to be a power center. This isn't going to be an industrial park. This isn't going to be single-family homes. We know what it isn't going to become, but we have to be a little bit more flexible with the parts and how they could move around within this square mile. But the sooner we can get it locked in, the better. I completely agree with that. But until we have development plans in hand from a developer, I would caution you about getting too detailed on any individual piece of property.
And everything will come before us individually as it comes in. So at that time, then we'll know more details of what really is going to be built there and stuff. So commissioners will hear from step one on out when it actually comes.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
When you talk about shovel-ready sites, do you envision that in this area, or is that a different part of Village One?
It's all over Village One. It's more like job-ready sites, and I'll come to that in the future slide. But one thing that I wanted to mention for Surprise Center is Commissioner Somers had mentioned minimum density, and I did bring it to the developer, and they are ready to put that in and add on the minimum density requirement for Surprise Center. Mm-hmm. So, and this is again one location where you hopefully once the deed restriction is lifted, we will see mixed uses and increased heights. They're already approved for increased heights as far as the zoning itself is concerned. So just bringing that along. Agua Fria will most likely be the same sort of development that you have been seeing in the rest of the Surprise, but maybe with a special twist. So you'll see medium to high density residential along Agua Fria. There'll be limited commercial, limited specialty commercial, and a trail system along the Agua Fria that will connect you to the city of Phoenix in the future. So all the way down along Agua Fria. So this is something that we are excited to make happen. Other than that, as far as development, it's mostly residential and limited commercial.
I have a question.
Sure.
You make reference in the literature that we got to the Agua Fria Water Master Plan. Could you explain that in a little greater detail to me as to what that...
Sure. Agua Fria Master Plan is a plan that was created along with Maricopa County Flood Control District and Friends of the Agua Fria. And it is a plan that goes all the way from Lake Pleasant all the way up to Salt River. So every city has had to adopt the master plan. The city of Surprise is one of them. So it talks about creating a multi-use trail alongside Agua Fria all the way from up north to the Salt River. And there are plans to fill the Agua Fria with water in the future. Also reclaiming some of the land that is not... or some parts of it that are in the 100-year floodplain and reclaiming it and using it for future development. But the key point is the multi-use trail system that would connect several cities at one shot. We do have a copy. I want to say it's online in the Flood Control District website that is available online.
In doing this and creating this it's a recreational area, the trails and Riverwalk. Is there going to be anything addressed to control the quality of the air in that area because of the mining?
That is a very bad issue right now to speak about. But the mining has been there from a long time. Some of it we cannot control, some of it we can. There are air quality monitors in the locations, in most of the locations along Agua Fria, and they are controlled by the air quality Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. So that should keep a lid, and most of the permits that go on do come before the mining board under Maricopa County. So that's the best we can do as far as air quality from the city side.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is that, clearly this plan does not contemplate or encourage anything regarding mining activities. City Council is on record of not encouraging that in a very formal way. But what this plan does is it really provides us with alternative uses along that corridor other than mining, which puts us in a better position.
If I may add on, I'm sorry, if I may add on, Commissioner Rain, the land ownership alongside where it's under the City of Surprise jurisdiction or planning area is owned by state lands. And I don't think there are any mining leases in the immediate location. Only to the north, yes, and to the south we have Vulcan Materials. But right alongside where we are looking at, there are no mining industries. It's all owned by state lands. Commissioner Hallen.
This is not in the city right now, is that right?
No, it's in the planning area.
Yeah.
So economic development, this was one of our main focuses throughout the Village One planning process. So I spoke to you about employment value proposition. So one of the policies that will be under employment value proposition is creating an education partnership between the city, the businesses, and probably Rio Salado Community College to allow the employers to train their employees. Again, it's a policy, it's not approved or anything, and we are hoping the city can work out something with Rio Salado, and it's one of the policies that will be under the employment value proposition. So we are hoping that will attract employers to locate in Surprise and stay on, creating jobs and such in the future. We are also looking at identifying niche industries that are on the forefront of the economics right now at this time. Solar is one of them, medical and health industries. Everybody needs to have a health industry. Everybody needs to go to medical. So we think that's one of the industries we might like to focus on. We're developing a balanced retail strategy. This is something that has been very successful in Europe as such, but it's something that we would like to put on or see if it works in Village One. It's to make sure we have retail components of every single type, or at least 2 retail components. In Europe, they do 2 of everything. So you have 2 butchers, 2 grocers, 2 this, 2 that, so somewhat like that. We may not follow that exact same strategy, but we'll be developing a balanced retail strategy to make sure we have all kind of shops. Shovel-ready sites are more like job-ready sites. So we will make city's own list of sites that are developed and has shell buildings already developed. So we'll make a list of those where people can look at and see, oh, this is already built, and they can move right in. So it's move-ready sites, job-ready sites, where employees can directly move in. So we will have our own list. It's for the entire Village One, not just for Surprise Center. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Rain? We're also looking at workforce development. This goes along with the employment value proposition and the education component of it. We're looking at image building. We don't have an image for Village One or the city at this point. So we'll be conducting an image building exercise for Village One and the city to market for marketing purposes only. So that is, so we're looking at, really, you can see it, we're looking at a synergistic vibe going on in Village One. So you see some beginnings of it with the incubator in AZ Accelerate and OTS right here. And all the home-based businesses in OTS. So there's a limit where the home-based businesses can go to. So once they are ready to move out, they could come on and locate in the Bell and Grand area. where we'll have the employment value proposition and create service industries, and they can use the education and research component that is located in Surprise Center. So you'll see a synergy happening. Again, this is all planning in paper, but hopefully this will work. I see a lot of potential in our goals and policies that we have developed. That's an economic development strategy. Moving on, transportation, we are looking at high-frequency transit service. Of course, a big component is commuter rail. So we'll see a transit center at Bell and Grand with commuter rail connecting to a lot of other bus lines. At this time, our funding is really low as far as transportation is concerned. So I would like to show this. But again, remember, this is a long-term plan, so it will happen in the future. We want to look at funding sources other than just the city. We're looking at grants from other places, federal and state. We're developing a wayfinding system, just as Jeff said. Nicole will be bringing that to you. We're also looking at a design for transit center for the future. As far as infrastructure is concerned, we would really like to turn a page and go to environmentally sustainable methods. So we want to develop a green stormwater system, most likely a regional detention basin. Again, these are just studies. We'll be studying to see if we can develop a green stormwater system. We'll be looking at development plans for vacant lots, we have a lot of vacant lots in Village 1. So we'll try to see how best we can develop them. So create it from the city side, see how we can develop it at the least cost to the developer and also to the city. So we'll be creating those plans infrastructure-wise for vacant lots. We'll be looking at operations efficiency, a master plan for water and such. That's about it for infrastructure. Moving on to the implementation. In the future, you'll see us coming forward to you with the design district master plan. So you'll see the OTS Heritage District, you'll see the Bell and Grand Transit-Oriented Development, Surprise Center, you'll see the pieces of it coming forward to you, but in a congregated manner, in a uniform manner. One thing that I would like to ask you is, as far as Village 1 committee, we have had some trouble having attendance at the Village 1 committee. I always have 3 to 4 people, but not more than that. So when we commenced the Village 1 plan, our plan was to have a Village 1 committee that would act as an advisory council, advisory to Planning and Zoning Commission and the council and the quality of life. But at this time, we are thinking probably we would not want to have a committee, especially if we have trouble finding attendance and members and such. We're looking at amendments. Would the village plan be amended? If the village plan is amended, would that be an amendment to the general plan? So just questions like these. And also, how often would you like to review the village plan and amend it? Is it 5 years, every year, 2 years, 10 years? So on. These are the questions that we would like to get information from you as far as advisory committee is concerned.
Commissioners, any comments?
I think every year is too much because the economics. The economy in itself changes how we look at things on a one-year basis. 5 years might be a little too long. I think 3 years would be a good compromise because you'll see trends developing within a 3-year period that I don't think you'll see in 1 year. And 5 years, I just think that's too long.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I was just going to say the same.
I think if you have goals set, that you both have both formative and summative evaluations of trying to reach your goal, and sometimes those objectives toward that goal need to change. And I think 3 years seems to me like it would be certainly timely.
I had a comment. I was kind of glad when you said you weren't probably going to have a Village 1 committee. What concerned me about Village 1 is if you had a committee of the residents of that village, this village encompasses the city center, which really impacts the whole city more than just this one village. And I guess looking at it, I had some reservations that like city center should even be in a village per se, but we've already gone through that with the general plan, but it did bother me to think that residents of this village could impact, say, something as important as the city center, which I think the whole city should be interested in. They probably aren't, but they should be.
Anything else, Commissioners? Thank you very much. It's very good.
So that's mostly, Commissioner Summers.
I was wondering, is this the end of the presentation then, or? Oh, she's going on.
Just one more slide. Yeah.
Okay.
We have been.
You have
I have some
something
stuff
on
at the
this.
end, so.
You don't want to ask her now?
No.
So we have been holding committee meetings. Again, at this time, we are just holding at the key milestones. So you'll see the final plan pretty soon, probably in the next 2 or 3 months in summer 2010. Other than that, this is the end of my presentation, subject to any questions you may have.
Commissioner Summers, you had some questions?
Yeah, actually, I think this might be better on a one-to-one. I went through the plan and tracked up my copy of it, and have a number of questions that are really not global questions, but just on a smaller scale, I guess. And but I would like to give you my comments. And go from there.
Okay. Anyone else, Commissioners?
I had one question on the Heritage Village, I guess, or the Heritage neighborhood. Was there any talk within that neighborhood? There's that one corner over in the southeast corner that's really an orphan to the rest of the village, or to the rest of the neighborhood. And was there any talk about some kind of way to connect the two?
The southeast meaning south of Grand?
Yeah, the south of the Market Street area there.
It's the triangle.
That little triangle down at the bottom is, when you look at what's happening to Grand now, and it's going to be a major, 3 lanes, and those people, I mean, it was part of the old town, but they're kind of separated.
Absolutely. This issue goes back all the way to 2001. We kind of based some of the comments on the revitalization plan that was done in 2001. And at that time, they had proposed a pedestrian bridge across Grand Avenue to connect the 2 neighborhoods. And at that time, it was they kind of threw it out because of economics, cost, effectiveness, and such. But I think we should not throw it out. We should keep it in place, especially once the commuter rail is in. So I think we are going to keep that in mind. But at this time, our connections are mostly based on the improvements at Dysart Road and not Dysart Road, Greenway Road and Grand Avenue. They are creating pedestrian amenities at the crossing and such. They'll be creating an island at Grand Avenue. So that's the only impetus right now towards that. But we do have that pedestrian bridge in mind, and sometime in the future, we should most likely, hopefully, see that happen.
I guess in the spirit that this is a long-range plan, it seems like maybe we should consider it.
We should, yes.
Yeah. I mean, not knowing we're not going to build it tomorrow or something.
I just have one question. On the in the Civic Center area, that square mile that are mixed uses, I know that there's been a lot of discussions, at least in the community, about what those uses will be, what kind of vision does the city have in terms of the development. And I understand that we need to have some flexibility in that area, but at the same time, is there anything that could give the commission, our commission here, any leverage in terms of what kinds of things that can go in there, not to be super specific, but at least something that would address the vision, and to see that we can make decisions based upon that.
Absolutely. I think what we could provide for the Commission is the PAD copy itself. They do have specific guidelines, and the specific heights, the specific uses, the architecture, a lot of detail in the PAD itself, which is already entitled. So I think that's something we can definitely share with you. When I did the exercise with the committee itself, we gave them about 3 alternatives for the surprise center, which was different uses. So one of the plans did not have the recreation here. Instead, it had more of a student housing, more residential kind of component. And towards the north, it was more a business center, employment district, and hospitality, arts and culture. So we have a lot of different plans. And the reason I just put mixed use is because I think the PAD shows it up really well, because it's a mixture of all the 3 plans that we put together. So I can definitely share that with all of you, the commission itself, the PAD, and also the alternatives that we provided the committee with.
I think in looking at different developments that jump all over the place, that sitting on the commission, sometimes we have questions about how many storage facilities do we need and where
Absolutely.
are they? Here, an individual developer comes in, is that going to be part of that total vision in terms of us being able to determine that, whether or not we would approve such a plan?
Sure, absolutely. I think the PAD and the entitlement will definitely help you do that. It's got some really good guidelines.
Okay. Madam Chair, just to build off on that too, keep in mind too that as part of the SVDC, which we talked about before, we're now encouraging more of a bundled process, and I'll keep reminding you of this because it is new for the City of Surprise, where we're no longer just annexing or just zoning. We're trying to make the developers come in with annexation, zoning, and then a plan for future land uses, because I understand what Commissioner Chapman is saying. It's like we painted a color, we call it commercial. Well, what does that mean? We need a little bit more detail, at least to the point where we can determine what's not going to be there, which I think sometimes is the bigger issue, because if we call it mixed use and then we allow self-storage, single family, warehousing, things of that nature, that's not what you all have in mind, and we realize that. So I'll ask Vanitha to send you the actual PAD document, which actually has been approved years ago, and that still actually stands and is legal. But then Nicole and Vanitha both came up with some different, more detailed land use plans that the Village One Committee has considered. And we'll make sure that you guys see copies of that. But again, in the future, when we consider zoning on these properties, we're going to be much more detailed with the developer here to make sure you know what you're going to get at the end of the day.
Could I go off of what Commissioner Chapman was talking about? And I think it would be better for us to go beyond that and say what we would like and know a percentage of how much of each retail, commercial, office space, residential, because I can recall having a conversation regarding the Stadium Village area just north of the stadium, and there was discussion as to putting too much residential in there and hotels and office, and we still hadn't seen any retail or restaurant or anything that, the original plan was supposed to be a Kierland Commons type place, and it was turning into nothing that looked like that. So my concern was that we had too much residential in that area, and it was explained to me, well, to make this work, we need a certain percentage of residential as opposed to a certain percentage of office. If we have that understanding when we're making the decision as to what we're going to approve and have those guidelines as to what's ideal, I think that would be more beneficial rather than just saying this is what we're looking for.
That's great feedback from the Commission to staff. We appreciate that.
Since I do have the mic, can I ask a question regarding the Bell Road streetscape? You talk about a design palette that's been established for the corridor, and then you have landscape, sidewalk, seating, lighting, signage, color palette. Is there any way where we can see that design palette?
Absolutely. That's the document that you have is purely a draft plan, so you'll see a lot of typos. Some things are missing, some is incomplete. That's only because we're still working on it. That part is actually complete now. So when I bring forward the final plan, you will see a lot of the detail right there. And if you want it right away, we are definitely able to send it to you.
And you'll see that specifically in July, since you adopted the work program tonight. So.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed presenting to you. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'd like to have a discussion on the options for the business cards.
Yep. Madam Chair, just real quickly, it wasn't necessarily this commission, but some other boards and commissions of City Council requested the opportunity to have business cards. as everybody is painfully aware, every penny counts these days. So we did offer the mayor and council with a number of different options to address that potential for having collateral that the commission members could use. We actually came up with 4 different options, and I'll explain each one very quickly, and then we can have discussion. You can provide us with direction on how you want to move forward. We can provide each member of this commission a personalized business card with your name and so forth, a professionally done business card, a box of 500. As you know, they only make them in a run per 500. That would cost $265 if every commission member wanted one. We can do generic business cards, which simply means that we would print them out and it would say Planning and Zoning Commission. It wouldn't have your name on it. A box would cost $40. The other option is to do a photo ID card, which is similar to the one that I have, and I think some of you actually have that, coupled with a full-colored brochure. The thought behind that is the ID card would allow you to feel very comfortable going to sites, looking at, zonings, conditional use permits, so on, so that you can show them credentials, if you will. The idea behind the brochure is if someone says, what exactly does the Planning and Zoning Commission do, you can provide them with that material, and they can know what the commission's all about. The fourth option is for us to provide you with the opportunity to allow us staff to make you some business cards in-house. They would be nice-looking cards, but they would not be on the quality card stock that you would normally see on a professionally developed business card, but we're happy to provide that service if that's the option that you choose. And candidly, all 7 of you could pick something a little different. We don't have to make one decision and all 7 of you get the same exact treatment on this, because it really depends on how engaged you are in the community and how comfortable you feel with what you want to have out in the field. So after that, I'll be happy to entertain and take direction from you at this time.
Yes,
Commissioner Howland,
one sheet of the homemade ones would be
Okay.
more than adequate for me.
Okay.
Commissioner Smith?
Option 4 would be fine for me.
Okay.
I'm fine with 3 or 4.
Okay, I actually like number 3.
Okay.
To actually, when you're at the zoo or when you're at another function of doing the brochures and stuff. So I actually like number 3.
Okay.
Commissioner Summers?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but okay, now I do. The number 3, the photo ID, would be fine for me.
Okay.
Commissioner Wright?
Number 4 would be fine with me.
Okay.
Commissioner Chapman?
Yes, I have number 3 already, but I would like some cards, just a few.
Okay. Did you want them personalized or generic or made in-house?
Well, in-house, number 4.
In-house? Okay.
Just something
Very
simple.
good. So just to clarify, we'll make sure that we have photo ID cards for every single one of you. We'll go ahead and design a brochure. Betcha, Nicole is here. I bet you, Nicole, we could come up with a fancy brochure at some point over the next several months, couldn't we? She wants more work. We'll bring that forward to the commission to make sure you see it, and it'll be colorful. It'll be similar to the one we did for the Quality of Life Commission, which I think turned out well. And then we'll do homemade business cards for 3 of you. And we should have those available within the next month. Okay? I appreciate the feedback.
Very good. Anything else, commissioners? This time, meeting is adjourned.